In his 2007 book, The Year of Living Biblically, A.J. Jacobs chronicles his journey to live by a literal interpretation of every rule found in the Bible. Through this experiential lens, he questions religious faith and reassesses his own views on spirituality. The book opens with a prologue where Jacobs shares some of the challenges he faces due to his undertaking and provides a brief overview of his secular Jewish upbringing in New York City, which offered little in the way of rigorous religious instruction. The inspiration for his project comes from his uncle Gil, a spiritual omnivore who once endeavored to live strictly according to biblical teachings. Jacobs outlines several reasons for writing the book. He seeks a follow-up to his previous work. He feels a God-sized void in his heart that he hopes religion might help fill. And he is intrigued by the millions of Americans who claim to take the Bible literally, despite suspecting they selectively adhere to its rules. He details his preparation, which includes purchasing multiple Bibles and conducting extensive research to compile a comprehensive list of rules to follow. He establishes guidelines for his project, such as selecting which Bible version to use, focusing on the original intent of the rules rather than their literal wording, and considering the distinctions between the Old and New Testaments in terms of the rules to be followed. He resolves to begin by adhering to New Testament directives and forms an advisory board of friends and family to assist in decision-making. Jacobs acknowledges that many believe his idea is flawed, and he harbors his own doubts as well. The project commences in September, and he is quickly overwhelmed, realizing that every minor decision in his morning routine is governed by some biblical rule. He soon discovers that nearly every biblical line invites interpretation. Reflecting on some of the more peculiar commandments that defy rational literal interpretation, Jacobs hires a consultant to check his clothes for mixed fibers, ensuring he complies with biblical mandates. He also grapples with modern dilemmas, such as whether using a computer is permissible under biblical guidelines. Jacobs grapples with his interactions with women, which are heavily influenced by biblical teachings. To avoid physical contact with a female cashier, he fabricates an excuse about having a cold, only to later realize he has committed a sin. His relationship with his wife becomes strained due to the prohibition against touching her during her menstrual cycle. Navigating life in a modern city presents a significant challenge for Jacobs, who begins to catalog the numerous ways he unintentionally violates biblical principles, even noting all the things he covets before noon. As he contemplates the commandment to tithe his income, Jacobs discovers that the Bible offers no specific formula for determining the amount to give. A rabbi he consults explains that there is no set number, but the contribution should feel like a sacrifice. Seeking further insight, Jacobs meets with individuals who have attempted to live by a literal interpretation of the Bible, visiting Hasidic Jews in Brooklyn, evangelical Christian groups, and Amish communities. He approaches these groups with respect, but questions some of their more unusual interpretations, acknowledging his own secular perspective and respect for science. As the year progresses, Jacobs finds some biblical rules impossible to follow literally. He points out that certain commandments conflict with modern laws. Faced with the biblical directive to stone adulterers, he struggles with the realization that he knows someone who is having an affair. Ultimately, he decides that a symbolic stoning, in which he flicks a small chip at the person, suffices. Humorously, he informs the reader that, despite the biblical command to murder magicians, he will refrain from doing so. Jacobs concludes the book by reflecting on what he has learned. He gains a newfound appreciation for ritual and for treating certain aspects of life as sacred. However, he finds a literal interpretation of the Bible to be absurd and admits he still struggles to understand how some people adhere to it. Finally, he expresses relief at being able to shave his beard at long last. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe. Thank you.